Welcome to the Business Review, a daily program that delves into the latest economic stories in the financial market around the world. From currency affairs to technology stories, we bring you the best from around the world.
Zimbabwe began a 21-day nationwide lockdown implementing tough anti-coronavirus measures that are likely to hurt an economy already suffering from hyperinflation and food shortages. Zimbabwe had recorded just 7 coronavirus cases and 1 death, but President Emmerson Mnangagwa said in a televised address that citizens should take the restrictions on movement seriously. Unlike in neighboring South Africa, where many citizens defied calls to stay indoors with some clashing with security forces at the weekend, Zimbabweans mostly stayed home. At Naniri Flat in Harire's suburb Mbari, children played outside while adults expressed anger for the short notice period about the lockdown to buy enough groceries and were also worried about the consequences it will have on their livelihoods, with some saying they were paid daily and many living hand to mouth. Shops have been exempted from closing, but most had not opened.
Russians have long relied on dachas, out-of-town cottages with plots of land, as a source of refuge and food during times of political and economic turmoil. Now that the number of coronavirus cases is creeping up in the cities, the second homes have taken on a new role: self-isolation hideouts. Demand for rented dachas has surged around Moscow as people escape the crowded capital, where at the last count authorities had confirmed 1,226 infections out of a total of 1,836 nationwide. Families who don't already own one typically start renting dachas in May and return to them during the summer months for weekends and longer breaks. The Income Real Estate Agency said bookings have risen 14% over the past 3 weeks compared with the same period the previous year. The private dacha plot survived Soviet-era land seizures by the state and became a means of basic survival for many during food shortages. Authorities in the Russian capital have announced a partial lockdown, ordering residents to stay at home at their toughest move yet to slow the spread of coronavirus, though people are still allowed to enter and exit the city. Moscow's mayor Sergei Sobyanin advised people over the age of 65, as well as those with chronic illnesses, to turn their dachas once again to reduce the risk of infection. Many younger people followed in their wake. Andrei Vrodsky, co-owner of an IT company, said he and his colleagues had moved to their dachas for at least the next month.
Macys said it would furlough most of its 130,000-strong workforce as all stores of the department chain operator have been temporarily shut due to the coronavirus pandemic. Like many retailers, Macys has already said it would suspend quarterly dividend and withdrew its 2020 sales and profit forecasts in response to the uncertainty and financial hit from the store closures. The company said these store closures had severely dented a majority of its sales, despite the online business staying up and running.
A well-known Brazilian NGO has been leading an effort to deliver food to the most vulnerable in Rio de Janeiro's favelas during the coronavirus outbreak. Kiko Afonso is the executive director of ACAU Citizenship Action, which is one of the largest and renowned NGOs in the country. Over the last 2 years, he led a complete restructuring process, putting the NGO in a new track focused on young, vulnerable people on three main areas: culture, citizenship, and entrepreneurship/innovation, developing projects in partnership with major partners such as UNESCO and Ford Foundation. Alfonso said vulnerable families needed help now more than ever before. Resident Glaucia Farias de Almeida, who lives in one of Brazil's crowded favelas or slums and is raising her two grandchildren, welcomed the help. She has been unable to continue her job as a cleaner during this time. Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, Brazil's two most populous and most affected states, have shut down non-essential business and public gatherings to slow the spread of the virus. The authorities are at odds with Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, who has called the pandemic a fantasy that was exaggerated by the media. Despite Bolsonaro's comments, Brazil's government said it will expedite cash payments of $117 to poorer citizens struggling during the coronavirus outbreak once the Senate passes a bill that cleared the lower house.
Bolivia has sent troops into the street to enforce a strict quarantine to avoid more coronavirus cases, leaving informal workers in a crisis. With no way to earn money and bans on leaving their homes, many are struggling to find enough food to get from one day to the next. 36-year-old Mary Mamani is the mother of an 8-year-old boy. She has been eating only fruit and cereal for the past few days because she hasn't been paid in 2 weeks. Mamani works as a taxi driver. She has run out of money to buy food following the pedestrian and vehicular circulation restrictions imposed by the Bolivian government. Bolivia has imposed measures to prevent coronavirus, including a rule that only one person per family older than 18 years old and younger than 65 years old can go out to buy food within a 6-hour window. Mamani lives in a suburb far from grocery stores and must walk about 4 hours to buy food. She has reduced her food rations to feed her son. Bolivian interim president Giannin Anez has taken additional economic measures to protect against the fallout of the global coronavirus pandemic. The government announced a family bonus of $72.69 to help the families during the quarantine period. The lockdown in Bolivia ends on April 15th, but Mamane believes authorities will extend the quarantine, putting their survival and that of millions of Bolivians in danger. Bolivia is the most informal economy in the world, according to the International Monetary Fund, with 62.3% of workers as self-employed, without wages or social security.
France Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire said French companies benefiting from financial support from the government to help them through the coronavirus crisis must not buy back their shares. Le Maire had said that such companies would not be allowed to pay a dividend to shareholders in order to ensure that their cash stayed invested in the business. Speaking in a televised interview, Le Maire said France is ready to protect its most strategic companies through increased state contributions and temporary nationalizations. Le Maire had said earlier that the government is monitoring the situation at companies hit hard by coronavirus confinement measures, including Air France, KLM, and Renault, adding that nationalization was not the only option to aid these companies. Le Maire added France is on its second week of lockdown, which has forced non-essential businesses to shut and people to stay home, and the impact to national economic growth is forecasted to be much more than 1%.
This has been the Business Review, your daily dose of economy and technology stories around the globe. Tune in next time for more up-to-date developments in the financial market. This is Farah Al Hashim reporting from Paris for KTV2 for the program The Business Review.